can I throw something your way, PT, that might blow your mind? Like that emoji with the fire coming out of his head. It feels to me like the light heavyweight division and the middleweight division have champions that are very good and had very impressive wins, but aren't necessarily respected by the entire division and community. Meaning it feels like, oh, once they fight so-and-so, they're going to lose. They're not they're almost victims of, or I should say beneficiaries of circumstance rather than meritocracy. Alex Pereira moves up to 205 right now. Does he beat Jamahal Hill? Like, you know what I mean? Like the guy that everyone is saying, oh, just wait until he fights the creme de la creme of 185. I feel like he can go up to 205 right now and be the double champ. Is that a crazy thought? To avenge his mentor's loss.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect matchup for him. But as me and Chuck agreed on, after Pereira won the title, he is a tough matchup for Israel Adesanya and potentially nobody else in that title mix. You know, like this is just a funny thing with MMA matchups. Like, I mean, yes, Jamahal Hill is there, and it looks like a good matchup for Pereira now. But I don't know. I agree with that. I think if you were to ask the majority of fans now, who do you think wins in a fight between Yuri and Jamahal, I'd imagine the edge would be with Yuri, right? A fully fit Yuri Prochazka.
Yeah, it is interesting. And Yuri actually just tweeted, "Congrats, Jamahal. I am coming." We still don't know. I mean, it still kind of feels like we're a ways away from Yuri Prochazka returning. And so when you look at the rest of the weight class, I'm not really quite sure what direction they go in. Do you have him wait? Do you do the Anthony Smith fight that you were supposed to do? I mean, Anthony Smith was in his locker room, and
but how does the Anthony Smith situation?
I know, that's so weird.
Do you think he's been affected by the fact that he didn't come in on weight here, even though it was only for a standby fighter? You know what the UFC are like. You know, is that going to play into things now, or because Anthony, with all respect, Anthony's in their good graces, do you think they could probably look beyond that and say, look, that was the fight that was meant to happen?
It's possible. He's also coming off a loss to Magomed Ankalaev, who didn't lose his last fight. He fought to a draw. That's not a loss. Neither did Jan Blachowicz. I mean, there's really no good answer here.
You do Ankalaev, right?
You do Ankalaev? I feel like the fight that gets the most buzz is Smith, just because like he's more popular. But
I think so. I think the UFC's got to be somewhat afraid of Ankalaev winning it. You know what I mean? I just think that I
don't think they really care. Why? Because of his ties? They just put him in a title fight a month and a half ago.
Just because of his style.
They just put him in a title fight.
That he he would have been still in a title fight, like if they were really impressed by his performance. You know what I mean? Like he still would have been rolling ahead. I'm saying, like, I got the sense that they weren't overjoyed with what they watched when he fought. You know what I mean? Sure. So I don't know if they would be anxious for him to then go in there and suffocate Jamahal Hill and snuff him out and take his belt right away. But I'm kind of going off of old UFC ideology here too. Like, you're probably right that I don't know how much they care anymore about that, but I would think that factors in, given that this fight materialized literally after a boring fight, and there was a mortified Dana White making calls to these guys and telling them, and you know what I mean, and making that fight. So that could be a factor.
I think the fact that he has the best manager in the game is likely to see him get it over the line. You know.
See, here's the problem with you making that statement. People actually think you're being serious now. Like the sarcasm doesn't work at 1:30 in the morning when you deliver it like that. All right.
I was waiting for a little.
This is what Brendan told me. Brendan told me about this.
Yes.
He did wink.
I'm looking at you. No one can see you right now, so it doesn't really work. Yeah. Rakic is involved in all of this. He tells me he wants to come back, or he's hoping to come back spring, summer. But again, that's a long layoff. Who the hell knows? It's hard to make sense of the whole thing. Yuri, if he'd be available, would obviously be the guy, and it would be the cleanest situation. Can I bring up something? Can I be annoying for a moment since I brought up Pereira? There I am watching the 43-year-old Glover Teixeira get battered from pillar to post. And I was like, man, Izzy took this damage for 15 seconds. Same referee. Love Mark Goddard. But I got to say, same referee took this damage for 15 seconds and lost his belt. And for some reason, Glover took damage for 24 minutes. and he went the distance. Please explain that to me. Can someone? I'm going to go to my grave believing that was an early stoppage, and I don't understand how does Izzy not get that same kind of respect?
I had a MMA official one time relay to me an old Wayne Gretzky quote that said, "Skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's at," or something along those lines. Right? Like,
very good.
So I think, and this was Douglas Crosby. He was like, he's I don't know, look him up, but I'm only joking about this, but like, I was trying to make a broader joke that they knew that the Glover had something still a run in him, like that they've seen his fights and all that stuff. But I'm just kind of BSing. You're absolutely right. You could watch this fight and be like, why was he given so much rope to come back? I mean, there were a couple of times where he's on the ground and it just looks like he's out, not out, right? But just where you're like, mercifully doesn't look like he's going to be able to recover from where he's at. You know what I mean? And yet,
do you think it should have been stopped earlier?
There was at least one point in the third round, or was it the second?
Third round, also the fourth.
It was the fourth. The fourth
is when I felt like really.
I think that's when the three of us actually shouted, "This is going to stop this."
Yeah, there was, especially when that uppercut landed. I think that was in the fourth. There was just a couple of moments. That one was kind of later in the round, but there were at least two occasions where I felt like it was about to be stopped, or it should have been.
Okay, two occasions in that fight, but not to skip ahead or anything, but it was one of those nights where there was a few fights where you're going, holy shit, lads. Like the Andrade fight with Lauren Murphy. Like how did the corner, I know it's not solely on the corner, but how did the corner send her back out for the third round of that fight? Like it was,
sure, but you see, here's the problem. You are skipping ahead. So let's not talk about that right now. We've got a main event to talk about. I mean, for fuck's sake, why are we talking about Andrade Murphy when we're still trying to digest the main event? Back to Glover Teixeira. I know you got the host on Thursday, but this is my ship.
He's all nervous about the Bills. He's getting all janky.
Chuck, he's on edge. Go ahead, man.
If a youngster walks up to you and says, "Who was Glover Teixeira?" Yeah. What's his legacy? What was this guy all about?
Oh, man.
It's 1:30 in the morning. Can you properly describe and give him his flowers?
Man, that is a tough one, but I would say that he was he was a champion in mixed martial arts, right? I mean, I would start with that, but I think what he has.
Jesus, I mean, I could have told.
Well, no, I mean, I think what he has.
Are you a Wikipedia page?
Yeah, are you give me his record also? Gee,
not to mention you throw me on the spot.
Glover Teixeira was born.
Sum up his.
I'll tell
up his career.
I'll tell you who
fucking
Glover Teixeira was. Glover Teixeira was.
It was always good. This is what it was. This is what it was always going to be.
This is a volley. This is falling, so you could spike.
Why did you just write in the chat? Someone asked me.
Glover Teixeira was a fucking guy who came from the mean streets of Brazil, who should have been in the UFC long ago. Unfortunately, as we all know, he had visa issues, so he almost became like this myth, like this guy Glover Teixeira, this guy that we keep hearing about, this tough SOB Glover Teixeira with the name. Or do we call him Teixeira? Is it Glover? Is it Glover? We don't know. And then he finally gets that visa. The guy that he always said he was a fan of Mike Tyson and he just wanted his chance. And he took a picture with Dana White and he was a disciple of John Hackleman and Chuck Liddell and he helped him train for fights. Can he finally get that visa? And he moves to the United States and he works as a landscaper to make ends meet, to try to live the American dream, to try to become one of the big stars of the UFC, to champion in the UFC in Connecticut of all places. And what does he do? He scratches and claws his way to the top. But what does he do? He gets kicked to the bottom of the ladder and he gets knocked out brutally. And he loses to John Jones in his highly anticipated title fight in Baltimore, Maryland, of all places, in April of 2014. And what does he do? He doesn't lick his wounds, even though he got poked in the eye multiple times. He kept coming. And then finally, what happened? What happened in October of 2021 in Abu Dhabi, of all places? He realized the dream, the boyhood dream. And he could have walked away then, but he didn't want to walk away. And he fought the lesser-known Yuri Prochaska, and he lost that fight in a minute. His first submission loss ever, this BJJ black belt. And what did he do? He came back and he kept on fighting, and he got screwed. But the MMA god said, no, not to Glover. You're going to get this opportunity in Brazil. He got the opportunity, and he lost in that opportunity. career ended.
Yes, listen. I'm just trying to imagine the kid's face that I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's a lot of information.
Where's my mouth? I asked this question, and then this man screaming at me in the supermarket. I'll tell you who Glover
overestimate you overestimate a kid's attention span, Ariel. I don't think they'd listen to that. But anyways, he was a champion. I think I explained it just perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
That was good. That was very good. I thought it was really good.
That was really good. You know what,
Little Johnny?
I'm saying.
You know what, Little Johnny, when he retired, even though he was down 50-44, the place was still packed. No one left. They all stayed there to give him his flowers.
Is this a fiction? It's a work of fiction.
There were 5 people there. Like, what the hell, Brazil? I gotta say, Brazil crowd, little underwhelming, weird. Very quiet. I thought they were subdued.
Notice that.
Even for Shogun, I didn't feel like they brought it. Obviously, when the heroes don't win, there were a ton that did win, but Shogun, Figueiredo, Glover, those were the big ones. There's not a lot to cheer about. Didn't love the throwing the beer at Moreno. I mean, he's kind of a nice guy. I thought he handled the post fight pretty well. Didn't think that was necessary, but I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more.
They're very loose with those beers, man. That's what I remember about UFC 134. There were beers flying, and I felt like at any minute one's going to crash into my computer, and that would be that.